I'm Mark Teglin, President and CEO of Calvin Community. Calvin is a faith-based, not-for-profit retirement community providing a continuum of care in Des Moines' Beaverdale neighborhood. For more than 50 years, Calvin has offered individualized care by a team of dedicated professionals. As part of our mission to serve older adults, we have partnered with several community, business, and not-for-profit organizations and 6 professional experts. This program is brought to you by Calvin Community and American Enterprise Group with support from the Comparison Project at Drake University, Broadlawns Medical Center, Cultivating Compassion, the Dr. Richard Deming Foundation, Arbor Springs, AARP, Westminster Presbyterian Church, and Polk County Board of Supervisors, and additional support from Severson Strege and Company, Des Moines Pastoral Counseling Center, Des Moines Area Religious Council, and HCI Care Services. In this session, Charles Wurth of Arbor Springs discusses what Alzheimer's disease is, the progression of the disease, the needs of those with Alzheimer's disease, and guiding principles for caregivers and family of those with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias.
Alzheimer's care is a very complex, multi-contextual concept. It's got all kinds of things that are involved with addressing Alzheimer's care. You've got the individual, you've got the family, you've got the society has an aspect to it, you got expectations, you got all kinds of things going around. And I'm going to try to simplify it the best I can so you can leave feeling like, okay, I get it enough to know I can do something about it. This is the agenda. The agenda is meant to be kind of a mile across, but I think all of you are in places in your life right now where you would like to kind of go a mile deep in something. I have no clue where you are with the disease process, if anything, so I'm going to kind of start with going a mile across and go a mile deep on 2 areas. First of all, I want to introduce to you the concept of wisdom. Okay? All of you in this room, with maybe a few exceptions of those of you way below the age of 40 or 50, probably at least we admit one advantage of getting older is we should be wiser. Okay? And what's the definition of wisdom? What's the definition of wisdom? It's the combination of love and intelligence. Wisdom, people who are wise combine love and wisdom and intelligence. If you just have love as a caregiver, you're not good enough. You also have to have some skill sets and some competencies and some intelligence. You and I bring wisdom to everything that we do. And even if you think you are fortunate, I think you're naive if you do, if you think you can escape this disease, I think you're naive, like I said, but even if you do, I think what I'm about to say tonight will help you because you cannot get good at Alzheimer's care without also getting good at other parts of your life. Because what works for people with Alzheimer's works in every other aspect of your life. You can't be good at taking care of people with dementia and not be wise. You have to bring wisdom to the encounter every time. The second concept is ordinary. Wisdom and ordinary. How many of you have ever walked into a place, a room, where you were the only one? You were the only white person in an all-black environment. Or you were the only woman in a group of all men. Or if you happen to be stupid enough to wear a KU jersey into an Iowa State room, okay, or an Iowa room, okay? You've been in situations where you were the only one and you felt everybody looking at you because you were unique. You were different. And we don't like difference, do we? We kind of see that as something that's just a little bit edgy or wrong. People with Alzheimer's sense that they're different. And when you look at somebody with Alzheimer's from they are different or they are something's wrong, remember the advantage that we finally got with people with handicaps? When we finally figured that out? Let's don't look at their handicap, let's look at who they are as a person. It's the same thing. They sense you. If you come with fear, Kent's point, they feed off fear and they just cannot function. What I want you to understand is what makes them ordinary. They are more similar to you than they are different. Their mind is changed. I will not deny that. I don't want it either. But their heart and their soul, what makes us human, remains intact. And you've got to be good at connecting to the heart and to the soul. And that's just the same today as they are at seventh stage of the disease process. You have the ability to connect at a person's heart and a person's soul. You don't have to be an expert. Just be human. Ordinary, wisdom. Okay, so let's take those two toolkits and let's go through this thing. And again, apply this to people with dementia, but also apply it with your spouse. Okay? Or your kids. Well, I don't know if it works with kids, but anyway, we'll try. Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, first of all, you have to have some knowledge. Understanding Alzheimer's, I'm going to go through this quickly because if you want to know something about Alzheimer's, good God, just pick up the newspaper. There's 1,000 statistics. I'll go through a few. Number one, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? I hear this all the time. Well, I think she's got dementia. No, I think she has Alzheimer's. Or, okay, here's the definition. Next. Dementia is the umbrella. Okay, it's not a disease in itself. The term dementia is used to describe a collection of symptoms caused by disorders affecting the brain. Dementia is the umbrella. Okay? There are 70 kinds of dementias. Only one of them is called Alzheimer's. Now, why do you hear Alzheimer's more than any other dementia? Because it's more prevalent. The vast majority is Alzheimer's, okay? So these are the different kinds of dementias. Alzheimer's is the most prevalent. It's the one that affects us the greatest. And it's the insidious onset. Insidious kind of means it's just gradual, starts off slow, okay? That is a blessing because it gives you time to prepare. You must understand something about if you are given the responsibility to take care of somebody with Alzheimer's, you've got to get yourself ready for a long journey. It ain't going to be easy, but you got to get prepared. It's a progressive decline of cognitive function. That's the plaques and the tangles in the brain. This is about the brain. The brain literally is getting eaten up gradually. It kind of starts in the process and goes around. Dr. Binner talked about that. Result in impairing a social or occupational function from a previous highest level. You have to see a difference in someone's ability. If you're lost today at 50 or 60 or whatever you are, you're still going to be lost with dementia. It's something that you were good at before that you're not good at because of disease. That's a form of the ramifications of Alzheimer's, okay? We get into long stuff here, but these are some of the signs that these are the effects of the disease process. Anybody who's had somebody with Alzheimer's recognizes these things immediately. Okay, these are some statistics I get all the time. My grandfather has Alzheimer's, my mom has Alzheimer's, am I going to get it? Okay? The answer is fairly simple. 95% of people with Alzheimer's get it because they get it. The factor of aging is why people get Alzheimer's. They got older. As you get older, the odds of you getting Alzheimer's increases. 50% of us, when we reach 85, if this room was full of 85-year-old people, half of the audience would have Alzheimer's. If this audience was full of 60-year-olds, which I am, 5% of us would have it. It doubles every 5 years. So statistically, it starts to happen about 60. If you got Alzheimer's, and we have it at Arbor Springs, we have it in our home care, at 40, maybe 50, I've seen some at 30. It's tragic. It happens. They have Alzheimer's because of genetics. So you don't inherit it unless your parents had it when they were very young. This is that whole grid. We divide the disease. We used to call it early, mid, and late. Now we call it the Riesberg continuum. It goes from stage 1 through stage 7. Okay? What is stage 7? It is infancy in reverse. You are bedridden. You're in a fetal position. You cannot speak. You are totally have to be cared for. That's stage 7. Alzheimer's, unlike other dementias, is progressive. Most of us will die if you have Alzheimer's with something else because you're also 85
hate to say this to you, but 85, you also have other diseases too. Okay? And most people die of other diseases. But if you had nothing else, you will die because of the disease, because the brain eventually stops telling the body to breathe. So stage 7 is there. What's stage 1? That's hopefully you and me. Basically, from 1 to 7 is a continual losing of all aspects of how you function, from the brain to the body to just the ability to take care of stuff. Stage 1, stage 7, the question has to be, if you're a caregiver or you're beginning to try to want to understand more about the disease, I get that it's progression. I go from nothing, everything is fine, to I don't want to be there. It does not go in the same line. This is how it goes. What I'm trying to say to you is that the disease process goes in circles. A particular day in the life of somebody with dementia could start off at stage 4, could go to stage 7, could go back up to stage 3, all within 24 hours. Or July could be a month of 4s, and a month in August be a month of 5s. It continually evolves, but the fact of it is it goes towards 7. What's the difference between that slide, besides poorly drawn, and the other slide? The difference is, of course, is that straight line right there, right? And this is why you need to be here or someplace to get information. This doesn't have to happen. What this is, that somebody started off in the disease process, something happened to the individual, and nobody was there to catch it. That person was left unattended, and we didn't catch a cause that made the person spiral down. We must create a village, a community around a person with Alzheimer's. They need our support. I don't care what your history is. I don't care if you love your mother or not. Get rid of all that stuff. Everybody gather around and do their part. And this is neglect. Nobody purposely did that, but everybody fell asleep at the wheel. And what happens is, what makes this tragic is they went from 2 or 3 down to a 6, and guess what, guys? It doesn't go back up. We permanently made their new normal way down here because we didn't catch it. Now, what causes this drop? What are some things that cause somebody who has dementia, which left on its own goes gradually like that? What causes the drop? Give me an example. Diet. Their diet changes. All of a sudden, because they forget to eat, they don't know what they're doing, all of a sudden, all that food you give mom, you thought she was eating, you ever check the refrigerator? She ain't eating it. Okay, what's another thing? Close to diet is water. Fluids. They don't drink water. They get dehydrated. All of a sudden, boom. You and I can make the adjustment. They can't. What else? Think of all the things that affect your life too. Remember, this is ordinary too. It's just that you can adjust. What else? Sleep. Social. The kid that used to be close to her died. Things happen in their life that affects them, and all of a sudden they can't recover. Anything from social to diet. They have a UTI. They have fecal impaction. They have pain. Anything that affects a human being affects them. They're a human being, but they can't adjust. We got to pay attention to their baseline. Make no assumptions. And do not ask Mom, how you doing? Fine, and let it go. When you have somebody with dementia, you have to trust her answer or his answer, but you have to verify it. Okay? It's okay. Trust is defined a little bit differently now. You have to find out what he or she is doing. Cognitive. So I'm going to take one of the 5 domains. There's cognitive. It affects your function. It checks your body. It checks your behavior, and affects your relationships. Have you ever taken your mom with mid-stage dementia to a restaurant? How enjoyable is that? Not much. And yet, remember what I said at the very beginning? Okay, wisdom and ordinary. Don't you need to? We're social human beings, right? We need people. But it's embarrassing to take mom out in public. So what do? We keep mom at home. We isolate her. We take her away from the very fabric that we all need. We need other people. Get over it. Take her out to lunch. This is what your brain does. It affects your memory, your language, your reasoning, your abstraction, attention, judgment. And by the way, judgment is probably the biggest concern that you have. They make poor decisions. Leaving somebody alone with Alzheimer's is against the moral code. They cannot be responsible for making good decisions. They can't. The part of the brain that allows you to make a good decision is gone. Okay? And don't try to tell your mom, don't you remember? No, I don't remember. Don't tell me that. I know I don't remember because the part of the brain that used to remember is gone. Okay? Perception and organization. I wasn't organized to begin with. I'm not going to be organized when I got Alzheimer's. Again, it has to be a change, okay? So your brain does a whole lot of stuff, but the brain has some brain cells to do it. Biology 101, different parts of your brain does different things. And by the time you die with the disease, all that stuff is gone. Guiding principles for caregivers and families. Okay, so what can you kind of hang on to? Okay, next. There are 4 things, or lots of things, but just take these 4. Don't allow the disease too much power. We do. We blame the disease on everything. Oh, that's the disease. Maintain personhood despite the disease. Recognize that they have rights, just like we have rights. The rights don't change. Okay? And recognize the unique needs of the individual. Okay? So let's go explore each of those 4 real quick. Number 1. The guiding principle, don't allow the disease too much power. All of the principles, tools, and tips support this one. It starts with that very fundamental mindset. If I keep feeding the monster of this disease and give it too much power, too much credit, I will never be able to manage a quality of life with my partner or my loved one. Don't feed into that myth. The disease sucks. No question about it. But don't let it have that much control. There are things that we can do to mitigate the awful things that happen with the disease. But we have to understand what the disease is doing and what we can do about it. You got to understand that well. Okay? Okay? Focus on the person and not the disease. That sounds so, okay, Chuck, we get it. Don't be preaching. We get the concept. But let me run through a test. Okay, see if you pass the test. Okay? Next. What makes us a person as opposed to an animal or a plant? Okay? All right? We can think, we can talk, we can reason, we can plan, and we can solve problems. That's kind of a human piece of what makes us human, right? We'd all agree, okay, so what's your point, Chuck? I traveled all the way here to get that. So next question. Now, what makes us a unique person? Remember, I like to ask questions. It's how we think and talk and that's what makes you, you, and me, but yet we all share the commonality that we're human. Okay, so far it's like, okay, so what's the breaking news here? If Alzheimer's disease takes away our capacity, because it takes away the brain to think and to talk and to reason and to plan to solve problems, did we take away their humanity? The very thing that you just agreed to 2 slides ago that says that defines us as humans, we just took it away, so ergo, maybe they're not human. And I'm not saying that you fall into that trap, but there's a mental permission every now and then to kind of ignore her for a minute. Oh, she doesn't know. She won't know. She's in that state. And we don't see them as inhuman. We don't go that far, but we kind of dismiss for that moment of, it's just, they're different, and we can get away with treating them as if they were invisible. What do you and I need from other people? We need people's respect, right? There's a great word, I love this word. It's called being respectful, attentive. Respectful attentiveness. If you could go to everybody that you meet today and respectively pay attention to them, and when people with Alzheimer's, they are very, very sensitive to the fact is everybody treats me as if I'm invisible, especially if you're in stage 6 or 7 when you can't talk. Don't fall for that trap. They feel just like you feel. They can't communicate it, but they feel it. If you were ignored and passed over as you were invisible, you would speak up because you have a voice. Just because they don't have a voice doesn't make it right or wrong, okay? So, gives you a premise. Well, you constantly have to think about next slide, okay? So, regardless of what happens, there's still a person in there, okay? Don't forget that, okay? Next. They have rights. Did you know that there's an Alzheimer's Bill of Rights? Okay, well now you will. Next. Okay, what are they? To be informed, to have appropriate ongoing medical care, to be productive as long as you can, to be treated like an adult. I just said Alzheimer's is maturation reversed. You end up acting like a child, but they're still an adult. They still feel the sense of being an adult. The carefulness is you can't treat them like a child, even though they act like a child sometimes. They are an adult. And yet they've lost the ability to do some adult things such as language and et cetera, et cetera. To have expressed feelings taken seriously. Guys, what I said to you a long time ago, I said what works for people with Alzheimer's works for you here. How much of communication is nonverbal communication? Now, you're a student here. You should know this answer. What do they teach you in school? It's like 90%. Okay? My greatest gift that I thought I had was the gift of words. I can talk to anybody. All this high fancy, got a master's degree, blah, 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 so I can talk words, okay? Guess what? How does that play with somebody with Alzheimer's? They don't understand a word I'm saying. How are they judging me? By the content of my heart. Learn how to speak in nonverbal communication. Learn how to speak from your heart because the words are jumbled. They don't have words, but they have a heart. Learn how to speak nonverbally, and that will also help you with your everyday life. What works for Alzheimer's works for everybody else. Arbor Springs. We set up Arbor Springs. It's an all-dementia facility. Okay? And we did this thing on a concept, the concept I'm sharing with you. We didn't know if it was going to work. No one's ever tried it, so we tried it. And it was working. And some lady came in, did a tour, and she asked me, what's your admission criteria at Arbor Springs? Remember, we just serve people with Alzheimer's. I said, it's this and that, but why are you asking? It sounded like there was something behind the question. And she says, there's nobody with behavior problems here. How did you screen out behavior problems with people with dementia? And I said, we don't. Okay, now, granted, if she would have stayed longer, she would have seen the behavior. Believe me, what I'm saying doesn't eliminate behaviors, it just mitigates it. It just lessens it, it makes it more manageable. But the reason why we had less than the places that she had seen before is we knew inherently what a person with Alzheimer's needs. And they don't need a gun. If we give them a gun, if we give them the shot, it meant that we failed at other things that we should have tried first. Try other things first. And I'm going to show you what those things are. They have to live in a safe, structured, and predictable environment. They need to have a rhythm of the day. Okay, whatever that rhythm was that your mom had or your spouse had, it was this, and that, you've got to find out what's comfortable for them. They don't have a concept of time, but they have a concept of rhythm. They kind of need to know what follows. Don't keep changing the rules. To enjoy meaningful activities is something that you and I do. We have the right to go do it. They have the right to do it too. What I find is interesting is the next one. Would you have put that there? This is not a best practice. This is not a wish for. This is a right. Human beings, I said, are wired to be social, but we're also wired, and this is something I think we've lost in our young generation, and maybe even lost in mine, is to be outside. We can spend almost all of our time inside this sealed environment, and we were wired to be outside. People with dementia need to be outside. We do this risk assessment. Do you know what elopement means? Elopement in Iowa means you get fined $10,000. That's what elopement means to an owner, okay? If somebody leaves a facility and we didn't know and they kind of wander off, that's called elopement. They left without permission and then nobody knew it. That's not good. If we take somebody outside, we've increased the risk of them scaling over the fence. We take care of that problem, just keep them inside. But you take away that biorhythm, and you've diminished their soul. You've diminished their body. They need that. So take them outside even though it's risk. You are going to have to sacrifice quality of life for a little bit of safety. You're constantly going to have to navigate what's safe and what's quality of life. If it was that simple, this would not be a complex issue. You're constantly navigating between the two. No different, bingo, than raising a 2-year-old. Same question. If we protected our 2-year-old without ever giving them risk, they would not live well. Okay, so how do you manage that? Okay, all right, next. Okay, the unique needs of, and I like this expression a lot, when you find yourself at that wit's end. She keeps doing something and doing something and doing something, and you're ready to just, okay, take a step back and quit trying to do the same thing over and over. You're trying to force something. You can't do it. It doesn't work for your spouse, doesn't work for your kids, it's not going to work for somebody with dementia. You reset, refigure a different angle, and try a different angle. But I'm going to tell you that's probably some of the best advice you can take home with is just quit trying to force the same thing. What's the definition of insanity? And expect different results, right? Square peg, round hole, same concept, okay? All right. Everybody's unique. Your mother or your father or your spouse will be different. Remember what's going on in the brain. Remember the short-term memory goes. What stays? Long-term. Their brain, that they're functioning, their eye, their place of being is 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's where they're living. And you got to get back into that world. And so when they say, I need to go see my dad, and dad's been dead 50 years, don't say he's been dead for 50 years. No. That's where they are, go with it. Go with the flow. Find where they at, stay with them. Stay where they are. Get them back into that comfort zone. Their world's different than your world. Get out of yours. Get into hers. Okay? So, what are the rules? This is what you put on your refrigerator door. These are the 8 rules or 9 rules, wherever they are. Okay? Never argue. Remember all those great lectures as a parent when you yelled at your kid? All that pontification of yang, 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 and yang, and yang in your body. Guess what, folks? Every time you went into that mode to your kid's brain just shut you off. It was a wonderful lecture, I'm sure, but it was wasted. When you argue with somebody with dementia, you just need to know that whatever you're trying to convince that person of didn't go anywhere. So go do the argument in a mirror someplace else. Don't argue with somebody. The brain that can argue back or debate with you to be rational is gone. There's nothing to argue with. Logic and reason do not exist. That goes with number 1. Lying is acceptable. What does that mean? You've been taught as good Presbyterians or Methodists or whatever you are, you're never supposed to lie, right? Until you're a politician, right? Or something like that. Okay, you're meant to always say the truth. Truth is relative. If they say their dad died or they want to go see their dad, that's where they are. Go with it. Truth and lying are 2 different concepts. Go into their truth. All right, you are not who you think you are who they think you are. One of the biggest tragedies of this, it's a death of lots and lots of deaths, a series of losses. And one of the hardest things for you as a caregiver is when your mother doesn't recognize who you are. Be prepared. But they know you. They just don't know the association, your daughter or your son or your spouse. They still know who you are. We did an experiment, true story, where we brought the same person into the room, the lady didn't recognize him, took him outside the room and had him just speak. And she recognized his voice as her son. It's this, I don't know what it is, but they can't do the face thing and the register thing. They just can't do it. But they still sense you. Keep coming. The tragic is, especially for the grandkids and the kids, because they don't have that rapport anymore, is you got to keep coming because it does matter. Learning to do something new is not important. How many of you, I keep going back to the parent thing, that's probably not appropriate, but it's what I got. When the 4-year-old comes home with the art project, where do you put it? You put it up. Do you critique the art? No, in fact, you don't even know which way is up or down, right? You just put up there. You don't critique it because it's the enjoyment, it's the process. You want to encourage your kid to keep trying to do something or get a better day job, okay, or something. But you got to kind of encourage creativity. when you do something with somebody with dementia, enjoy the ride. Enjoy just the act of doing it. Don't worry about the product, okay? Because that's what's important. But they must feel at all times that you've accepted them as they are, as they are. No different than you in your relationships now. You must accept your peer as they are, not as you want them to be. If you want your mother to stay at home, change the physical environment. You cannot leave it the same. Again, walk where they walk. Most of us are pattern individuals. Our footprint is pathetically the same. We kind of go the same place, do the same thing, and God bless anybody that messes up our morning routine. Oh my God, there's hell to pay for that, okay? Well, they have routine all day long, okay? Fix their physical environment. So if I fix the medical and I fix the physical environment, I'm halfway there. 2 more to go. Stay with me. Social. We're more than just creatures. We are social creatures. We need to have something that's meaningful in our lives. What's meaningful to you is different than what's meaningful to her. Just, if she was a concert pianist and now she can't play A flat from a B flat or whatever one does, it's okay. Let her play the piano. Let her do what she wants to do. But she needs to be plugged in and engaged, okay? So, do you know this about your mother? If you were to go to a nursing home, and God forbid if you do, but when you do not let the admission person tell you what we're going to do for you. You reverse that quickly, and you tell us immediately who are we receiving and what you need from us. But if you don't tell us these answers, don't let us figure it out, because we got 55 other people to figure out. You only got one. Bring this information to the caregiver. Okay? Does that make sense? You have a responsibility to be that person's advocate, and this is the knowledge that you have to bring. How often do you revisit this? The disease goes in a progress, so what worked in 6 months ago doesn't work today. Revisit it about every 90 days. Okay? Next, and final is this. This is where the magic comes in. If I got the right physical, the medical, and the social, now the caregiver comes with the act of love. Remember I said wisdom, love, and intelligence? The first 3 was intelligence. The last one comes in with love. If you provide love, that one-on-one connection that only certain people can do, and you only allow certain people to do it with you, they can do this if everything else is done. If you're scared out of your wits because you have Alzheimer's, and they're scared, they are scared, and you reassure them that you're with them and they're okay, and you're with them, and you're with them, and you're comforting them, they can relax, and then they can allow you to enter into their lives. But if they're scared, they're going to block you off. It all works in sequence. You can't get good at one without getting it all. No different than your life in general. You can't be good at just one thing, you have to be good at all things. Why do we call it holistic medicine? It's holistic, guys. It's not a brochure. It's not a marketing gambit. It's real. Okay, next. Communication tips. This is kind of one of those things. Do no harm. Learn how to communicate. Don't argue. Just basically do common sense stuff. Respectful attentiveness. These are some tips here. Go to the Alzheimer's website. There's 8,000 lists about how to talk. Just don't get them to live in your world. Let them live in their world, and then communicate. But learn how to listen to the emotional content of their saying. They don't have the words anymore to say it, but they have the emotion behind it. Learn how to read emotion. Okay? Next is, these are some things about communication. We'll go through this quickly. Go next. Okay? Use positive language. Never leave anything with negative. The last thing you say is what they're going to remember. Okay? A lot of times you got to get everything down to kind of 2 choices. Don't give them too many choices. All kinds of things. This is a list you guys can get. But make sure when you get in this thing, get the books and stuff about communication. It's fairly straightforward and easy to understand. Okay, next. They're going to be agitated. They're going to be stressed. They're going to be anxious. That's be prepared. And these are kind of the guidelines to say, join the person, time, and place. This is First Aid 101 parenting. Be with your kid. Be there. Show them you can be there and then go from there. Help them understand that you understand how they feel. Never reason or argue with them. Reassure them that you're with them, and then redirect them. You're constantly redirecting people with Alzheimer's to a safer place, either physically or emotionally. I want to end with something that I think is important. This has to do with mindset. The light bulb. They have the ability to be lit, but they have to be plugged in. And people with Alzheimer's constantly have to be plugged in. And that's what makes our care difficult, because it's constant. They constantly have to be plugged in. I gave you some tips in the slides about how to plug them in. It's not rocket science. It's not huge things. It's just literally acts of kindness, acts of mercy, acts of connection. But remember, you can't leave them alone. And you guys got to have patience. You got to keep plugging them in. But I'm going to end with the last slide here. I'm going to go back to the moments of joy. Because if you don't believe this, everything I said doesn't count. You're not going to get good at this if you're an expert in communication, an expert in knowledge, an expert in behavior management. You're going to become an expert if you've got this. If you believe this, that this is possible, even for somebody with Alzheimer's, if your main goal as a caregiver is simply this, to generate a moment of joy with him, with her, and with yourself, the rest of it will flow. You've been given a gift as a human being. I believe this sincerely, that we've all been gifted with the ability to love, to give joy to somebody that we care about. Go to that place when you enter in to knock on that door and says, my job today is to generate a moment of joy, and the rest of the stuff will come to you. But you have to come with that mindset and that belief, or the rest of the stuff won't come to you, because you're constantly on the fly. You're constantly making up new rules as you deal with people with dementia, because they don't follow the rules. They don't have no rules. But if you anchor onto this, why am I here? To generate a moment of joy, you will be successful.
Thank you for watching. For more information on the Embrace Aging series, please visit calvincommunity.org. We now invite you to discuss the following questions.